In today's clip, I'm going to talk about the guilty pleasure that is The Bachelor and its offshoots, and how its idea of coupledom and romance is utterly ridiculous and totally unsustainable. Hey, XenPuck here. Now, if you asked me a few years ago, I'd have said that I really dislike reality TV. Alas, fast forward to now, and a courtship, and now that I'm married later, I have to say, my wifey's gotten me into this whole genre, right? And a prime example of this is ABC's The Bachelor and its various offshoots. I'd say I've become at least a reasonably, though probably not a diehard level of fan, okay? Having mostly reached the conclusion that Bachelor in Paradise is the most ideal variant of this genre. Not to say that I don't enjoy some of the original, obviously, OG Bachelor and Bachelorette episodes, right? Though primarily, I'm only interested, I find, in the beginning of seasons, right? Because the appeal of those are quite similar to watching like American Idol or any talent show. I think I'm just really only interested in the delusions of the participants when the participants are plentiful, right? And obviously not up to par. Now, what really prompted me to think about this show is how often wifey and I argue about and look up whether any of the couples whose lives that we've gotten peeks of are still actually together. And not surprisingly, we are often only surprised when it turns out that the couples have lasted, even if it's more than a year or two. It just seems like for a series that ostensibly celebrates romance, these shows have a terrible actual win rate, right? The last time I checked via the glorious database that is the internet, from the official Bachelor and Bachelorette series, is out of 41 seasons, only 15 couples are still together. Oh my god, that's a 36% retention rate in terms of relationships. That's actually worse than the divorce rate generally with just regular people, right? So today, I'm going to list my reasons why I think the series, while enormously entertaining, is just a travesty for people who are actually looking for love, okay? Just remember, I make these observations out of love, not to prompt change, because then these would become a totally different type of show. And I wouldn't know how to feel about that, to be honest. Okay. Point number one. First thing right off the bat, I've always thought about these Bachelor type of shows is that, oh boy, it must be real easy to fall in love when you have these incredibly elaborate and opulent dates when you first meet someone. I mean, even just the original meeting scene, you know, meeting the prince or Princess Charming, right off the bat, okay? I've never seen so many ladies in ball gowns in the same place outside of like once in a decade type of parties, okay? And yet, this is how ladies are usually introduced. I'm sorry, but if I first meet a lady wearing a ball gown as a first impression, almost any other outfits she wears from that point forward will only be a letdown, okay? Honestly, it's not just about ladies. Same complaints with dudes, right? When do dudes ever wear tuxedos outside of their actual weddings? Oh wait, it's when they're the Bachelor. Okay, my point is, these expectations right from the get-go are set super duper sky high. Now, is it really any surprise that the real reality sets in after the show? I mean, do you think the vast majority of the participants can ever go on as fancy of a date out of the context of the show? It's unlikely, right? Just think about that. If I as a person thought that the very best dates and time of my life had already happened before I even got married, then I'd be disappointed right at the beginning of the marriage, wouldn't I? That's just sad, right? That's just not what I believe about my own relationship. Not one bit. My God, I know the best of my life is still yet to come, with someone I would love and I am loving, growing old with. I don't need a TV show to create what fantasy should be like. That is utterly insane, not to mention mentally lazy. God. Number two, having watched as many of the contestants as I have, especially on, let's say, you know, the spin-off Bachelor in Paradise, right? You really do get a sense that at least half of these contestants are just here to build their own brand, right? For publicity, not for real love at all. Hey, again, I want to mention I'm totally fine with that, right? It's fun to see the same faces wax poetic about how they can't find love, when clearly they're just there for the publicity, or are either too dumb to self-examine, or deliberately trying to manipulate other people, right? It's also extremely apparent on shows like regular Bachelor. I mean, do the ladies, like half the ladies, really cry, over losing the guy that they've spent like literally 20 minutes with? This is very common on like episode 1, right? They don't know the dude like at all and they're this distraught. If anything, this is some at least fine acting, I guess. Emphasis here is that the people on these shows are a self-selecting group that can only really be called, the initial wave of young people who just wants more and more attention, right? Obviously, I'm sure most of them are like, hey, it'd be great to fall in love. That's a side benefit. But on these shows, there's been enough evidence that dudes and ladies keep like a honey back at home and yet still go on the show. Why? I think it's just because they want to be famous or semi-famous or, get to that C-list celebrity that a Bachelor contestant at best can get to. I mean, that's a different issue in it itself, right? Being happy doesn't make anybody happy. Just like being rich doesn't necessarily make anybody happy. But most people don't or won't realize that lesson, either way until they've been famous or rich, right? Still, you gotta love the train wreck. Point number 3, the type of people they pick, right? Okay, I mean, I'm sure other more diehard fans can give a more balanced statistical analysis on, who's actually picked to be on these shows. But from my anecdotal level of skimming the shows, and I'm gonna avoid the whole race and sexuality spectrum type of critique, because honestly, that's a pool of quicksand if there ever was one. Let's just go with personality, right? Because this is a TV show and we all want pretty people on it. But just in terms of personality, I don't know who's casting, but it definitely seems like they really just aim for the most average and boring personality as possible, right? Like standard Americans, real standard. So much so that the occasional weirdos, the weirdo hotties, really stand out. Now, don't get me wrong, right? I get there's a lot of editing happening, right? And every season still have some really obvious mean girls or douchey dudes. But come on, the vast majority of participants can be reduced down to like a single moniker. Remember Grocery Store Joe? Like, how is that the most interesting thing about this dude? Seriously, like, when they call him that, I keep picturing that this dude must be traveling with like an emergency stash of fruits and vegetables in his backpack, like a traveling grocery store or something. I mean, to be honest, this is not actually the participants' fault, but the show itself, right? By reducing people down to these silly gimmicks, I guess they're trying to show the audience that these people are real people, when in fact that they're attention-grubbing wannabe celebrities. I mean, I roll my eyes more at how generically douchey almost everyone actually are made out to be, more than any other specific factor that contributes to my sometimes disillusionment with the show, right? Even if I ignore the racial, mix, aren't there people with actually more interesting personalities in the USA? I mean, apparently not, according to whoever's casting for The Bachelor. Hey, look, I still watch this whole series, right? I'm a fan. I see myself continue to be a fan because I love looking at train wrecks. I don't know about you, but most of the couples that get together are just that. Mostly train wrecks, right? Anyone with eyeballs can see it, especially with the type of editing that the show itself produces, right? Still, I'm gonna stick with, you don't have to change the show from what it is right now. Though I did wish, ever since I've seen like the very first season of the show that I was exposed to, I did wish that the title was more honest, right? Calling it Bachelor, Bachelorette makes it sound like it's for anyone. But it's not. It really is not for anyone in the US. It is not. A better title would be something like Chance at Hookups for Midwestern Valued Influencers with Spray Tans Only. America! Okay, obviously that's a terribly long and uncatchy title and I should be fired from The Bachelor for suggesting it. But hey, I only promised honesty, right? So do you guys hate or love these series? I find it much easier to watch when I'm in a relationship, because honestly, almost all these couples makes us feel stronger as a couple. I mean, I guess I should really thank The Bachelor for setting the bar for human romantic interactions so low. Cheers.